So this is the meeting of the Charter Review Committee, and my sign fell down for March 14th. Thank you, Pat, for doing the minutes. May I have a motion to accept?
I would like to, before you do that, Homar pointed out I did make one little goof on the minutes. I had put Dave's name in there twice at the beginning. So aside from that, everything should be good.
I think we can still approve the minutes
Okay.
and know that you will amend them when you send them to Barbara.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So motion,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
The mayor isn't here. So how this meeting is going to go, the public can speak to the item that I put forward, which will be, first it'll be ranked choice voting, and then the members will discuss it and decide. So when we get to that particular item, which will be coming up very shortly, I'll ask for anyone who has an opinion to come to the podium, state your name for the record, and let us know what you think.
Where you live.
And where you live. Thank you, Joe. So that's how public speak goes. It's ongoing. It's not just at the beginning of the meeting, is what I meant to tell you. So student member report. I don't know if Lucas and Shane, I didn't give you any thing. Do you have anything?
No, I just continue looking at ranked choice voting.
I have to.
I have that article that I forgot to email, but I printed out more copies if anyone still wanted
The
it.
fair vote one?
Yeah, about recounting. I can email it tonight as well.
Why don't you email it?
All right.
Okay.
I also continue to look at it, and I believe Barbara was concerned about recounts through hand counting them. And I found a little bit of information. I will email it to you all, but I found information from a city in, I believe, Virginia.
Can you talk to it? Because we're going to try and deal with this whole issue tonight.
Oh, it was just like a system of separating the votes in a way that it's easy to count. I haven't, there's a lot of stuff to it because it kind of covers their entire voting system for it, the whole article that I have. And I think it would be very helpful to email, and I will do that after this meeting. But
it goes
seems
to the
pretty
fact that if we do pass ranked choice voting and an ordinance is adopted that talks about all the procedures,
yeah,
that would be one of
it outlines their entire procedures in the article.
And there's
I found,
plenty
so.
of stuff online and from Resource Center on that. Okay. Okay, ranked choice voting. We're going to start on it. Public speak. If you have something to say, now's the time, because we're going to close public speak and go to the membership. Come to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Dan Gilbert. I live in Easthampton, and I think the committee should strongly consider voting in favor of this. I think it would be wonderful, at the very least, to put it to a vote of the residents of the town, and that'll give a lot of opportunity for education of people who haven't encountered it before. So I think that would be a good way of getting discourse going about it for residents of Easthampton. And then the other thing that I'll point out is I was just talking to Liz about Fall River that just had an election very, very recently, in which their mayor was recalled and reelected on the same ballot, and it was pretty much due to them not using ranked choice voting because of vote splitting. So this kind of thing is very real, and the shortcomings with our current system of plurality voting are very, very real. And I think it's fantastic for Easthampton to proactively lead the way in this. And I thank you guys for considering it.
Good afternoon, evening, everybody. My name is Aaron Cooper. I have been a resident of Easthampton for 29 years. You'll have to forgive me for moving away for 1 year. I am also in favor of ranked choice voting. I have voted in every election here in Easthampton as long as I've been legal. And one thing that pops to my mind was the very last election that Mike Tausnick was actually running. We also had on the ballot J.P. Kwasinski, Marge Prendergast, the former chief of police, and I'm ashamed to say I feel like there's a fifth person, but I do not remember.
Al DiCarlo.
Was it?
Yep.
5 people on the ballot. 4 people on the ballot. Oh, he was the former police chief. My apologies.
Oh, that was a different election.
Was it?
That was the
Yeah, that was a different.
You mixed 2 elections, but that's okay.
That's all right. We know you.
Continue your point.
We know you.
It's going. I'm sorry. Either way, 4 people, 1 election. With that election, I believe Mike had actually gotten above the 50% threshold on the first round, but
49.21.
49.21.
Yep.
Very
See,
close.
there we
We
go.
have all the data.
I got it right
sorry.
here.
Yes, we do.
I just
You know
knew
what?
that.
I don't
just
mind
knew
that you have all the data because
it?
my mind's going. It's been under consideration. But situations like that are not unheard of here in Easthampton as well, and it is not out of the realm of possibility that something like that will pop up again. Not only for mayor, but for other positions. And to have something in place for that so we can avoid a Fall River-like situation. And to make sure that someone who does vote for not one of the top 2 contenders is able to have their voice heard even after the first round. So again, I forgive my inaccurate information presented, but
All good. It's all good.
perfectly support the initiative, and I'm glad that it's being brought up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? This is the only time you'll be able to speak to ranked choice voting this evening. We've had a couple of meetings on it, but tonight's the last time. Go to the podium, please, Ben.
Hi, my name is Bren Maurer. I live on Kenneth Road. I like ranked choice voting because I think it's much more democratic than what we have, because you not only get your first choice, you get many subsequent choices. So and you don't end up with someone who only gets a third of the vote or some fraction that's not the majority. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead. I shouldn't keep asking.
I am Bassam Kurdali. I live in Easthampton and Parsons Street. I'm also in favor of ranked choice voting. I think probably we're all aware of why, but I strongly am against situations where people end up voting for their least favorite candidate due to vote splitting, and that can certainly happen in the current system, and it perhaps has happened before, but it could happen in Easthampton. And also I think Easthampton has a chance to be an example for other places and have this system spread throughout the country. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. All right, thank you. We'll move on, and this discussion will be for the members only, and that includes the student members, except for Barbara, who is the clerk, and she's also the person most responsible for all of our elections. Barbara has some things to say, and she submitted a thought on an actual language for the charter. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Okay. So I want to start out by saying that Fall River situation, luckily, that would not happen in a recall here in Easthampton because of the way our charter is written. There's one sentence that says that if a person is recalled, they cannot be on the ballot, which I looked today, and I was glad to see that in there. Yes.
We're glad, too.
I know.
Let's keep that in there.
Let's keep that in there. Everybody,
That's not a charter change we want to make.
keep that in there. Next thing, I want to say that after our last meeting, I actually had a conference call with the ranked choice voting people, and I have to say they are really very helpful, and their website is a wonderful resource with a lot of really good information. They don't seem to be one of these organizations that's really pushing it. It's just if for any community that decides to go with this, they've got a lot of resources. And I have used them in what I'm presenting tonight. I also do want to just, and one other thing before we start, we've had 11 elections since 1996 when we changed to city form of government. I'm looking at mayor. we would have only needed the ranked choice voting 2 times, just twice. So I just want to, not that it certainly could happen again, but for us personally, I want to say that I'm not seeing a huge need for it based on our history. Just putting that out there. So after talking with the people, it's my thought that if this is to be considered, my proposal would be that it only be for mayor. If you look at the list of everybody that currently has it and is using it, there's only 2 places that have multi-winner. One of them is Cambridge, and theirs is so different from every other form of ranked choice voting that it's almost shouldn't be considered. The other place is Minneapolis, but Berkeley, Portland, Minneapolis, or Oakland, San Francisco, Santa Fe, St. Paul, Tacoma Park, Telluride, they're all single winner races. I just want to say that. So it's my thought that if we're going to look at this, it might be better to go slow and just do the mayor's race for now. It's the easiest for everybody, including myself, to understand and administer, and I think it's just a good place to start, especially because the majority of places that use ranked choice voting right now, and even looking at ones that are coming up, are almost all single winners. So I just want to say that. So what I've presented to the committee are a couple options, just using mayor. And also another bit of information I got from the Ranked Choice Voting Center was about the legislation, and they recommend, it is recommended that the language be broadly written to be flexible enough to change with the times. For example, having terminology and adopted language that is specific to a particular type of voting equipment or a set number of rankings would limit the ability for elections to be administered as the voting equipment evolves. So it's my opinion that what Tom's put together is too specific. I think the specifics of how the rankings and the sortings, that would be something that would be determined by the committee that would go into an ordinance to be voted on. The first proposal I have talks about that, but then it also talks about who would draft the ordinance for the ranking. The second one is even simpler, and that is based on model language that I got right from that Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center. Just making it very simple. The first one, I also added in a line about an implementation budget, because without the money to get the equipment to rank, the program to rank, to do the rankings, we really can't do it. So there has to be funding in place before that can happen. So that, and the first proposal, which is that, I did put that in there. So I think basically that's my thought on it. I'd rather personally that we not do this at all, but if you are going to consider it, I'd say start with mayor, and if down the road it looks like, down the road it will be maybe, more understandable, better technology, I think that it's better to go slow. Just start with the mayor, and whatever you put in your charter, make it broad and simple, and then work on the particulars through the ordinance.
Okay, Barb, I have one question. When you talked to the Resource Center, did it relieve any of your anxiety on administration of this? It sounds like it did, in the sense that at least for a single choice election, you'd have a better shot of administering it without having to add a lot of people or anything.
Yes, well, there would still be a lot of work. I think they would be a good resource, but we'd have to work very closely with our vendor to make sure that the election equipment could handle it. But as far as drafting the ordinance, I think that they would be a big help. They were very helpful, I have to say. They were really, really good. But to me, the multi-race winner is the thing I found most daunting. The single winner, the mayor, is more understandable. I think it's more understandable ballot-wise. I think as far as printing, it probably wouldn't add that much more to printing, and it probably wouldn't be that much more for programming. We'd only use it if there's more than 2, so we could go, you know, several elections and maybe not even need it. We'd still have to pay the money for it, but we might not even need it.
Can I ask how often you have to reprogram anyway?
Oh, we program for every single election. Has to be programmed to read the ballot and read the ovals. If the ranked choice voting would just be another race. It would be just another race.
So that's not an added thing, but you have to change
It would
them.
be a little bit extra because there'd be more ovals.
And the
But,
software has to be changed because now you're doing a ranking.
well, we would have to have totally separate software to do the ranking. Yeah. I mean, I just use an Excel spreadsheet now,
Okay.
so I couldn't do that. I did ask them about the software, the universal tabulator. Reading from here, it says, the software is still in a prototype stage and requires a fair amount of computer expertise to operate. And features to be added, compatibility with non-ES&S voting system vendor, that's us. We don't use ES&S. So we would have to use the Democracy Suite, which comes with our machine. So,
But our vendor has the capability of adopting the software we need for ranked choice voting. Should we go that route?
If we use a standard similar thing, like say to Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is the only other place that uses our type of machine, I think if we followed basically the same rules that they do, then the Democracy Suite software would be able to handle it. This is what I've been told.
Any other questions for Barbara from the committee?
It costs $8,500 one time for the software, $850 annually. Those are prices right now.
Well, if we choose to do this, it has to be funded, obviously.
Right.
Questions for Barbara on her proposal? I'm not asking you to agree or disagree, I'm just asking if you have any questions. Okay, Tom?
Sure.
Present your proposal, and then we'll go around the room.
Great. So, I think, first of all, I would say that when it comes to the structure, Barb's proposal is a lot more elegant than mine. I was working off the same advice to keep it basic, but not being a lawyer or much of a writer, I used the basis of a proposed state law that would allow municipalities to do this by ordinance. And so I just kind of kept that in there, and I thought that a lot of these provisions in terms of the exact specifications here might make folks who are maybe a little bit uncomfortable about this feel a little bit more comfortable, because it lays out all of the sort of checks that all the boxes that would need to be checked in coming up with an ordinance to actually handle this. That said, Barb's is simpler. It's probably easier to understand. I really like the structure of the ad hoc committee. So I think that all of that is great. The one really big difference between Barb's proposal and mine is which offices it covers. Barb's is for the mayors only. Mine, basically, the revised version of this, which I sent out earlier this week, this is sort of based on the
Which
feedback.
is the one I printed tonight.
Yeah, and this is sort of based on the feedback we had I got from our last 2 meetings. Basically, no longer mandates the city to adopt ranked choice voting at any particular time, but empowers the council to do so for any race that they feel it is appropriate to do it for, and lays out the work that would need to be done. Which is largely what this does too. But what mine does is it does allow that for all races.
With the council making the decision.
With the council making the decision. So if we said, okay, well, or so and that could be this ad hoc committee too. And I think the decision-making body is something I'm pretty indifferent to. But I think that if the decision-making body got together and said, we don't want to go too fast on this, we want to start with just the mayor and go from there, then that's absolutely fine with me. But I do think that because I think that it actually wouldn't, it might not actually end up being as complicated as we think, or we might end up deciding rather quickly to move on it again. I think it could potentially be valuable to empower the city to allow ranked choice voting for races other than the mayor, just because we might not want to go back and make another charter change in 4, 6, or 8 years if we decide that actually we really like this. It might be nice to have the council already empowered to do that.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, the city council may, by ordinance, choose to conduct some or all of its elections using ranked choice voting, which I like your idea of flexibility. What if they choose never to do that?
Well, then the voters can, bring that up to them. If the voters wanted it and the city council chooses to never do it, then they can take that up with their electorate.
And it probably would require.
Actually, let's raise our hands so that I do.
Yeah. I actually
Joe's next. Wait, he has more to say.
I'm just not having to raise my hand.
What?
Any ordinance would require public hearing, so there would be the public input to tell the councilors. We really feel strongly. Am I correct, councilors?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let Tom finish. I don't think he was done with his presentation.
Because I think that sentence is good, and it could be easily worked into the first proposal, or even the second that Barb has, without enhancing it, without
Sure. Yeah.
overcomplicating it.
Okay.
Let finish yours,
so,
and then
yeah.
we'll go around the room.
Pardon me.
That's okay. I just want to.
Let me just say this right off the bat. If the thing that Barb wrote is what we vote out of committee tonight, I will consider that a success. This is. That being said, I do think there's a few things we should discuss first. I feel like a lot of the sort of strange election things that happen in Easthampton happen in our multi-winner races. I know for a fact that I've spoken to a number of people who were pressed by the campaign teams of one candidate or another to bullet vote for them in this last election. Bullet voting is when you only vote for one candidate instead of choosing all four, because it gives them an edge, right? If you've got two candidates who are neck and neck and you vote for both of them, you don't improve the situation of either. But the idea of that is that there are people who didn't express their whole preference on the ballot because they were advised to bullet vote. I would never suggest that any city councilor would ever tell somebody to do that, but people who were on their teams did. And if you use multi-winner ranked choice voting, bullet voting goes away. I also have concerns that the way that we do our sort of block voting for our multi-winner elections, where you choose for 4 seats, is something that is going to continue to come up in legal discourse as time goes on. Lowell, Massachusetts has been sued for using the same system.
As us?
Yes. The reason they use it for all their council seats, they don't have any precincts.
Oh.
They have a city which is 51% white and a council that is 100% white. Because if you vote along racial lines and one more person votes for a block of white candidates than a block of candidates of color, then only the white candidates get in. Again, multi-winner ranked choice voting does restructure that in a way so that not just racial minorities, but political minorities do have an opportunity to have maybe not control of the council, but a seat at the table. I do think that that is valuable. I also think that if we implement ranked choice voting for some elections, but not others, that is potentially more confusing to the voters than just implementing it across the board. So those are my thoughts on that. That being said, if there is a situation in where people feel like the multi-winner is too big of a step for now, my big ask would be that there be some sort of provision that would allow us to consider this without another charter change. And my small ask would be that we at least allow the precinct councilors to also use it, since those are also single winner races with the same dynamics, and it doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, what if there were 3 people running in a precinct and 3 running for mayor? Isn't that going to be confusing for people that they can rank the mayor but not their precinct race? Not that 3-person precinct races are common, but if there was an opening, you know, it's possible. And those are my thoughts for now.
Okay, I'm going to go around the room, including our students, see where you think about this. I do want to try and get a vote on whether we want to adopt ranked choice voting and which contests tonight. So we have 2 proposals. The first proposal from Barbara restricts it to just the mayor in the charter, and the second from Tom is asking us to do it through the city council. Lucas.
So I'm in favor of Tom's proposal. I like the idea of having the city council be able to control that. It kind of seems like it implements Barbara's idea as well as Tom's idea, where like you can, if you want, slowly just implement it like Barbara had suggested, but it also does give you the option. I kind of like that flexibility.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry.
He's clarifying something.
I just want to make it clear that in this I have the city council being responsible, but if it made people like it more to swap out Barb's ad hoc committee from my decision-making body, I would have no objection whatsoever to that.
We'll get to the language where when I see.
Okay.
What I'm going to try and do as chair is find where consensus is.
Okay, great.
Shane.
I would say we should probably just try out ranked choice voting for the mayor first and
See how it goes.
Yeah, because well, not even many people even run for mayor. So I think after having it for some years, maybe more people will be encouraged to run. We could try it out for other like offices. And then I would agree that we should make it as broad as possible because it's probably going to change a lot.
I mean, by having it in an ordinance, like Barbara suggests, the ad hoc committee.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo like Tom's concern about like people not filling out the rest of the ranks. I did come across Australia because they have ranked choice voting in certain places, and they have a rule where you have to fill out all of them for your vote to count. And that could be something we could consider.
That could be part of the rules that the ad hoc committee did. That's a good idea.
I think that'd be very difficult to enforce.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well, that's
that
true.
would have to be
What
like
happens if I don't want to
How
vote
would you
for
do
him
that?
and anyone
That would
else?
probably go up to state or federal.
That would be.
How did
lawsuit.
Well, Australia is a different country, so we don't have to.
Yeah, I'll look into
That
it.
would cause lawsuits.
All right. I thought it was a neat idea, but now I have to move to Australia. Pat.
So I agree with a lot of what Shane said. I like the idea of ranked choice voting. Originally I didn't. Originally there was a lot of things that I had heard and seen that had kind of led me towards this being more confusing for the voters, but I've come around. I do like Barb's proposal. I do like the fact that we're starting with the mayor, because again, if you look at, Barb mentioned, and then part of my homework was looking at some of the larger cities. There's 12 cities that are using this right now. I use the ranked choice voting centers information, and most of these cities are massive cities. And I think with us, I think starting a little bit smaller would be great. One question I did have for you, Tom, I was very curious about the bullet voting. How does that go away now? Because again, in theory, somebody could still bullet vote. You could still just, if there's 4 people running, you could still convince a bunch of people to.
If it goes to another round and your person
Correct.
doesn't make it through, it knocks them out completely.
Correct.
So you have incentive
But if they,
to.
yeah.
So, can I answer that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I asked.
I don't want to break the order too
Am I
much.
really a dictator?
All
Oh,
right.
God.
So in the way that we currently do it, you basically cast 4
Yep.
votes. When you do multi-winner ranked choice voting, what you're essentially doing is casting 1 vote
Yep.
that transfers based on your preferences.
Right.
So the idea is that if you have some threshold for a 4-winner race, it would be 20% plus 1 vote.
Mm-hmm.
And if your candidate, if you just fill in 1 candidate, then either that candidate gets
In or
clears
doesn't.
that threshold,
Or your vote's out.
they don't. And if they get eliminated, then you not filling in your second bubble does no favors to your first choice vote. It doesn't make them any more likely to win. It just means that you're not giving yourself a backup option if they succeed.
Yeah.
There's no longer a strategic value in doing so.
And I think part of my problem was all along that if somebody just goes in there and votes once and just picks one and doesn't pick anybody else, then as the math hashes itself out, your vote doesn't count. And I get it, your vote counts, but it's just counted different. But it still just had an issue with that. And I think there's confusion of that. And I think that if we do this and if we move forward, then we have to make sure that the voters clearly understand what happens if you don't pick more than one. So again, I'm in favor of doing this. I'm in favor of starting with the mayor's position. I'm interested in your new wording, but again, I think starting with the mayor, considering all these major cities are doing it, they're doing it for the mayor's position. I think this would be a good step for us. I'll leave it at that for the moment and let everybody else go, and I'm sure I'll jump back in.
Joe.
Yeah, so I guess a couple things just to make sure some of the wording is confusing. I think you said if we should adopt ranked choice voting. All we're doing is basically seeing if we are going to submit ranked choice voting to the legislature, which will most likely then say this needs to go to the voters, right? So we're not adopting it.
We're not adopting it, but the language, I believe, is our choice.
Right.
With the mayor also approving it, and then the full council, also with the city attorney in there. I just want everybody to know this process, this is our first step.
First hurdle.
But the actual language, if we adopt, say, the language that Barbara has to be a charter change, in my view, that then the legislature will decide whether it has to go to the voters or not. Yes.
So,
that
and
is
also,
true.
like, the sections you are submitting, is this actually, you would vision this as a ballot question this big?
If
My
we did,
concern is that-
I would say that might be a concern of
Right.
mine, that it's too large.
Right.
But no, if we did bring it, Barbara did say to me, and I was very happy to hear this, she's researched this, we can put on the ballot specific questions related to charter changes that can be voted by the voters one way or the other. For instance, this change by itself can be on the ballot. We could have just this language or the very large language, if we chose that, on the ballot. It would have to be mailed at our expense to the voters so they can look at it with pros and cons. But we can have just that question, and then we could have the housekeeping questions later. Or if we decided to do a terms of office change, that could be a second question. And the legislature could choose to only make us put those two and pass all the others. They could do all that. Or they could say, you don't have to go to the voters, which I would find really shocking, but
I would want to go to the
I
voters
would
if
too.
they did.
Yes.
Well, I mean, and that's,
Anyway,
and that's sort of
that's what I'm saying. yeah.
Right. I mean, so actually, I'm actually now, I'm in favor of ranked choice voting, for certain, you know, as it, maybe more towards the mayor and move into the at-large and precinct positions. I think Councilor Peak makes some great arguments about that. But I'm just thinking from a question for the voters, do you want ranked choice voting? I think that would probably be a yes or no, and
Yeah.
then that would
Trigger the
empower the ordinance to then go further. And the only thing I might change on this very short
The
thing
one
is
that
just change.
Barbara presented that,
Yeah, the real short one. Yeah,
and this
right.
came from the resource center.
Right. It's just maybe change the formable shall to a may, so that it just gives the option. We're going to do city council. We're going to do mayor. We're going to do just the shall is always problematic, and the may maybe gives you that group that decides on how to implement it a little more flexibility. But I guess I'm for ranked choice voting. I guess I would keep it simple and go with the model language.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I'm in favor of ranked choice voting, but I agree with Pat and Shane. Start with the mayor. I don't want to. Also, I am very concerned about how the city is going to administer this going forward if it becomes too complicated. I'm not certainly as knowledgeable about it as Tom, but I do feel that if we get it on the ballot for just the mayor, we get a start on it. And I really like to try it. And the other thing I'm going to say is, one of the things I like about ranked choice voting is it brings civility back, perhaps, to our elections. And I may be wrong, but the place where we've had the lack of civility is in the mayor's races. In our city, I don't like the bullet voting, but the at-large candidates weren't at each other's throats as far as I can remember in all our elections. Maybe they were, but I don't remember that. And certainly not at the district or precinct level. But at the mayor's level, we've had some negativity. And I like the notion that ranked choice voting would do it. And there were only 2 elections, but 2 is more than we should have had, where somebody doesn't get more than 50% of the vote. That bothers me. Our first election, Mike Tozdik won with 33% or whatever it was. Thank you for all that information. So to me, if we do it at all, we should do it for the mayor because it's the most important position we're electing, and it may bring out more people to run if ranked choice voting is used. As to Joe, your opinion, I like Barbara's second one. It's simple. It is specific to ranked choice voting for the mayor, but it's simple. The other thing I have to say, I'm leery, there's politics behind ranked choice voting in that, remember, we've had people, I forget, was it Portland, that were complaining, or in Maine, where there was a vote and people were complaining about how,
It was a House district.
House district or something. I don't think the city council should be making final decisions on this as a political body about who's going to be ranked choice voting or not. That, I question that. I might be willing to put some of Tom's language in after the mayor, maybe by ordinance for other elections. I don't know. I'm leery about an elected body deciding an election if we're going to use ranked choice voting. We should decide the parameters of ranked choice voting, like you said. That's okay. But whether or not we're going to actually use it, there's political ramifications of choosing that, like depending on how the elections are being formulated, aren't there? I mean, it's in my head. I think that could be a problem. So why put that onus on the city council? Let the voters decide, okay, we're going to do it by mayor, and then the ad hoc committee that chooses how we're going to implement it, how we're going to proceed, how we're going to tabulate it, all those things. That's where I am. Sarah.
Having been on this committee with Tom, I appreciate that you're an optimizer. And I think this is very thoughtful. I also think, like Joe said, it's going to be very difficult to explain this language to people. That said, I would hesitate to limit this to the office of the mayor, because while climate is one of the concerns, also when you look at the composition, who serves on the council, I'm sad to observe that there's kind of been a slow erosion of the representation, particularly of women. Anything that allows people to express more choices can allow a more representative body of people who serve the city. So that's been a concern to me, you know, when we were even talking back in our first sections. And you know, I do want to see if we can address that in some way, because, you know, there are a lot of wonderful people who want to serve, and you know, we're not going to solve every societal problem, but I think giving people a more comprehensive sort of choice will improve the chances of maybe non-traditional people coming to the council.
Omar.
Thank you. First, I want to say thanks to Tom and Barbara to take time and write something for us. I think both did a great job. I like the idea to send this to the voters, and so the voters could decide if this is the best option for us to vote here in Easthampton or not. I'm okay with both, to be honest with you. I like ranked choice vote, but the system that we have now, I like it too. I'm gonna explain why. I hear all the time saying having ranked choice vote is gonna eliminate the friendly. It's gonna bring more friendly. No, it's gonna bring more friendly campaign. I don't know if that's true. We cannot read the future. I don't know who's gonna run. Could be equal dirty as before. So it's really hard to determine if that is gonna happen or not. Bringing people, they are not going to win because they know they're not going to win. I don't buy that either. Coming from the place that I grew up, we have a party there that is independent. They run every year. They know they're not going to win. but they always find someone to run. So buying that, I don't know. Like I said, I'm okay with it, but I'm okay with the system we have now too. Here in Easthampton, we don't run as a Republican or Democrat. So there's another thing that every time the ranked choice vote is talking is to eliminate that. We don't have that here. So for those reasons, I'm okay having both, and not both, any of the two citizens that we can choose. Definitely, if we're going to do it, I prefer to do it just for the mayor. I think it's more important. I like the language that Barbara proposed. The second one that is easy to read, kind of simple. You have the language that she brought. I like it. Definitely, if we're going to do something like that, I prefer to have that language instead of having the simple one instead of having the long one.
Okay, David.
Excuse me. Just a couple of things. I'm in favor of, in general, when it was mentioned that only 2 out of 11 elections might have had a need for ranked choice voting, I don't fully agree with that, because I think if we had ranked choice voting in some of those elections, you might have had 1 or 2 more candidates come out.
That's true.
You know, the other reason is, you know, ranked choice voting in general, I think is more needed for national and state elections, but things start in the grassroots, so I think we should be, you know, going forward with this. You know, I was a political science major, and unfortunately, voter behavior is part of the boring part of political science. It's the dry, but when I studied it in 1985, 84, we didn't have to worry about big data, and big data's influence on the elections is going to be even worse than it was in 2016, and I do feel that ranked choice voting is one small step to counter that. So I'm in favor of it. At the local level, I'm in favor of maybe taking a little a slower process. So like most people here, the mayor only. I don't mind going with precincts also, because it's the same thing in a sense. It's a single winner. But I'm in favor of it, and I'm in favor of any flexible language to move it forward.
Okay, I want to say one thing that Tom said that I wanted to clarify for everybody. We've made charter changes in the middle of the 10-year period. We've made charter changes anytime we want. If the next council in 2000, there is supposed to be a charter review committee, and we may end up having to have it because we're not going to get done. If that committee wants to review this, it'll go on the ballot in a couple of years. It can happen. If we decide only to do the mayor, it doesn't mean we have to wait a long time to implement others. I'm just very leery. I'm going to let everybody say something else a second time, but I'm very leery of having the city council make a decision on which ballot, which contest will be ranked choice voting. I have a problem with that from a strong political point of view. Yes, we're elected, but we're talking about the election of another person, maybe to take our place, or in a contest that involves our own council. That's a little iffy to me. If it happens elsewhere, I'd like to hear what that results are for that. Tom, I'll ask you that. Have you found this language adopted by another? I know the state's thinking about it, but has it been adopted by another state or in another community where the city council makes the decision?
Nope, I don't think so.
So we'd be precedent setting.
Right, I mean, what we would really be doing is we'd be asking the voters for the authority to make
Right,
a decision
I understand
in the
that,
future.
but still we would have the authority. Barbara?
I just want to say that if it looks like you are thinking of adding other positions, I think that we need to rework the wording so it is gonna fit. So like, don't take a final vote on this is the wording we're gonna. I think if it was, if you know, I'm not saying I want it, but if it was gonna go for other things, this needs to be reworked, because for like council or at large, you say if more than like right now, if we were to have preliminary elections for councilor at large, we'd only have to have them if there's more than 8, more than double. That's why mayor, you have it if there's 3 people, because it's more than double. So would there be would it be like if there's more than
9?
5? I mean, you have to kind of say like if you have 4 people running for councilor at large, you do not need ranked choice voting. So, I mean, would you put that in there or not?
More than 2 candidates for each elected seat?
Yeah, so you'd need more than 8. You'd need more than 8. If more than 8 are running, that's because that's more than double.
I think that's obvious. We have to do something. If we choose to go that route for a multi-winner election,
so
we
I don't
have
know.
to do that.
So that's one point. And I also want to say that, like, as far as the special acts that we would put forward, it's my suggestion that this would be one special act. If you do it for a term change, that would be another special act. Any other thing that you think might need to go to the voters, do them separately. Don't group anything like that together. Do it soon, because
yes, I have to get this done.
It takes a while at the legislative level, and you're looking at September 18th as a deadline to put questions on the ballot.
Barbara and I and Tom have been discussing the timeline. It is obvious to me that by the end of April, maybe before that, we have to decide which acts are going to go to the legislature because we think they have to go to the voters. So that might be 1 or 2, depending on where we're at. Okay, any further comment? I made my second comment. What I think I'll do is ask us to vote on number 1, do we want to have a contest of just the mayor and see where we stand? I won't make that a final vote. We'll adopt the language for the actual language when we see where we're at. Further comment before I ask for a vote, Joe?
Yeah, I'm just confused what that means. So
I'm only going to see if we can have consensus, or if we could see if there's a majority that wants to do just the mayor, and then if not, then do we want more than that? I don't know how to go.
Maybe you should take a first vote as to whether you want ranked choice voting.
Okay.
And whether you
That's
or
what I
whether you
actually
don't.
said to myself.
And if you do want it, then go on from there.
Okay, that's a good point. Let's do that, because I was going to do that. It actually has that here. Any other comment? Then I'll take a motion as to, well, I'll move. Does the Charter Review Committee want to recommend ranked choice voting?
Does it need a second?
Yes.
no,
Second.
Dan, do you want us to vote too?
No, it has to be the members who vote.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
I don't really understand.
don't
yes
you
or
make
no?
that in the form of like, I make a motion to.
Adopt ranked choice voting.
Okay.
I make a motion to adopt ranked choice voting.
Second.
So if you're in favor of it,
Hold
we
on,
will-
I'm still confused. I understand what you're saying, but then you're going to
then
say.
we're going to have a motion as to which contests we will
Okay.
do.
All
Okay?
right. We're
And
clear.
if we,
We're clear.
all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so now this motion only is, do we want to adopt it at all?
Do we want to write something that goes to the voters?
Right.
All right.
Good.
Let's have a vote. All in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Against? All right, unanimous. We're going to do something. Okay, I will make a motion that we adopt language specific to the mayor's race for ranked choice voting.
I have a quick question. Can we say, do you want to do this for the mayor? And then can we say, do you want to do this for the city council?
We'll do
to
that.
not make them dependent on each other?
No, I'm just, yeah, you're right. I will do a second motion to, in other words, what I would do is write language for the mayor, and then if a majority wants to do the council as well,
Yeah.
we'll have 3 votes. We'll have the mayor, city council, single
School committee.
Right.
and school committee, and then we'll do school committee and at-large. We'll have 3
Okay.
votes. Does that make
makes
sense?
sense to me.
Okay, so this motion is, I'll make a motion that we adopt ranked choice voting specific to the mayoral race in Easthampton.
Second.
Second from Omar. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Against? Okay, so we have at least unanimity. We're going to recommend at least the mayor. You should be happy about that. Anybody? Okay.
Well, we had that in the first.
I make a motion that the city council adopt charter language the Charter Review Committee adopt charter language specific to single winner races in the precincts in East Hampton.
Second that.
Is
Can we
there-
have some further
Yeah, some
discussion
discussion.
about that?
Further discussion. This is just for the precincts, because then we're going to do multi-winner elections. Tom?
So the reason why I think, like, look, I would rather do it for everything. I completely understand the reasons why people want to roll it out slow, and I am really sympathetic to that. But if we're going to do just single winner, I can live with that. But it seems silly to me if we are making the investment in the infrastructure that would allow any single winner race to be resolved, that we wouldn't allow council races to be resolved. Which is to say that if somebody were to retire or do something very unpopular and there were a crowded precinct council race, and we have the ability to run that race in a way that I think we've all discussed here we think is superior, then choosing not to do so, it wouldn't really take a whole lot of extra work to make it mayor and precinct councilors, because we're already building the exact same infrastructure. It seems like it would just be confusing and wasteful potentially to not also include it in races that are structured the exact same way.
All right.
That's my argument.
I see Omar.
You've been here for how many years?
You really want me to have to say
Yes, please, yes.
I'm on 22 years.
How many
elections.
times the election was in present the 3 or more people are running for the same position?
Just the first one.
It's the first time.
After that, people liked me, I guess.
But you can't know.
No, I just want to know.
Right.
He's a precinct
Again,
councilor.
sort of like what.
That's what he meant. He knew that.
Precinct.
Yeah.
In a precinct. right?
Yeah, we're all precinct
That's what his point
councilors,
was.
except for
Yep.
Joe. But,
Well,
I
no,
guess-
at-large counselor. Who's an at-large counselor? No.
Joe's an
Yeah.
at-large
Yeah,
counselor.
okay.
But what I was just going to say is that is true, but that also might have something to do with the structure of our elections. For instance, there might be somebody with kind of similar politics to me who wants to run against, who wants to run, but is worried that if they do, they'll split the vote and allow someone we both disagree with to win. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I know that
Well,
if
you'd
I
have
was-
to have 2 other people to do that. You need 3.
Sure, but if
You
I
need
was sitting
3 to-
around and I saw 2 people who deeply disagreed with me running against each
I know, but his
other,
point
would
was
be-
that there's only been 1 forever. So if we had 1 more, there'd only still be 2. We wouldn't be in ranked choice. We'd have to have 3. Correct?
I'm good. All right,
Correct.
I just want to say that I'm still in favor of just the mayor, only because I feel that this is going to have a hard time passing. The mayor's race is logical, and that if we complicate it with more races, we may not get any of this happening. That's my opinion. I don't know. I don't have any data to prove that. I agree with Tom in one sense, but on the other hand, I still feel we ought to go slow with this. So, although I see reason for it, I'd like to stick with just the mayor. Sarah.
We've all gone around and said, oh yes, this is a very powerful tool that'll be a force for good, and we all feel very strongly about it, but let's not use it in almost all of the elections that the city holds.
Okay. Who else? Joe.
So I have a question. Do you envision the writing of this to say it shall be used for the mayor or it may be used? Because, I mean, we're talking about some expenses here too, and I'm all for it. But there could be some circumstances that make it either unaffordable or a problem. That's why I like to keep it simple with may. That gives...
With just the mayor?
I would put all in with may. So that way it gives whoever that ad hoc committee is or the city council, if the public says, yes, we want this, then let's give it to another committee to refine it versus us putting something out there that they're going to read a sentence and go, too much. That's my point.
This is only being, I'm sorry, Laura, this is being restricted to the membership. I apologize. I don't disagree, Joe, but I have to disagree because I don't like the city council making that decision.
But I guess my question is, do you envision the language saying shall or may? Is it going to have to use mayor? Is it going to have to use ranked choice voting? Even if it's $8,500, we don't have
If
the
you
money?
make it may, then the city council is making the decision on which race it will use it. Let's say
Or
there's...
subcommittee, an ad hoc committee.
Oh, that's true. Duh. Like Don's. The committee that Barbara has listed has only 2 counselors on it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That changes my mind. No, seriously, I didn't realize. I didn't. what I would do then is the mayor's race and I would combine the two. We're talking about just the district, but maybe what we want to do is look at putting language in that the ad hoc committee can decide other races. In other words, do the mayor and then have an ordinance committee or ad hoc committee do the
I just
ordinance.
think we're overthinking this a little bit too much. We just need to first notice the public want us to do this. And we can keep it simple. And then if they say, yeah, we want it, then let's go with an ad hoc committee or some, and then really nail this down.
And then in your process, does the ad hoc committee, we're making a choice, we shall have ranked choice voting, and ad hoc committee shall decide which races shall decide it. That'll be in the charter.
I think we may have ranked choice voting, and the ad hoc committee will decide that.
That's
If we don't have them,
that's the only language that's in there, not mayors only, but just that. I mean, I'm asking you how you would write it.
I would like this thing, the mayor, members of the city council can add school committee. I would just add everything in there. So if the ad hoc committee wants to do them all and there's the funding for it and they can do it, then.
So you're saying get rid of this, and just do this?
So we're talking about, just so everybody knows, this statutory language.
No, it's not at all.
Well, I like the fact that the voters are making that decision. Okay, let's continue. We have a motion on the floor about single choice voting, district counselors, precinct counselors. How does everybody else feel? Do we want to
And Tom
go?
seconded, right?
Right. Do we want
So we can vote.
I'm just curious, so the answer to the question, does it say, because if it says shall, I guess I'm going to have to be voting
We're
no,
not even
because-
on that yet, though. We're not even on, because he's just doing the.
We haven't
Yeah,
gotten
we're
to
gonna
We're
shall.
not
talk about
even,
the
we haven't
language
gotten to which one of these we're gonna do.
But
He's just trying to
let me
pull
point this out.
where
If
we
Joe
are
wants this
for which
language.
part.
If Joe, we said yes to ranked choice voting, then we said yes to the mayor. But Joe is backstepping and saying, why don't we do this language which allows the voters to decide all races, and the
No,
word
he's
may
saying-
would be
Well,
installed.
the ad hoc committee would decide all
Right,
these.
right, whatever.
Can I make a
The community
suggestion?
votes on yes or no, whether we're doing it or not, and
We
then
did
the
that
ad hoc
already.
committee that's formed
Can
decides.
I make a suggestion? If we move along just in order of the language, right? So we've gotten up to office of the mayor, and then we can talk about city council, and then we can talk about school committee, and then we can talk about shall. Just take it along.
I see what she's doing.
So we're going to first decide what offices we feel okay about doing this for, and then we decide.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, that's not how I understood Joe. I might be wrong.
But I think what
We
Sarah's
have a motion-
clarifying.
We have a motion and second, and we're talking about something different now.
I
That's
know,
true.
that's true. I want to pull my motion.
All right, I'll pull my second.
All right, no, and here's what I'm going to say. We have approved language for the mayor. Under the charter amendment as, we could use this language. If we say, if you look at this language, okay, it says members of the city council, okay?
Should we read it for the benefit of the people?
What I'm saying is, yes, I'll do that. What I'm saying now is the motion will be, we've said the mayor, shall we include members of the city council in this new language? Then we'll say members of the school committee, then we'll say shall or may will decide that.
Okay, but we should probably take two different votes on the city council, because we might decide that we want this to roll out for single but not multi-vendor.
Okay. So, in other words, the motion I made, I'll just clarify it to be language that would be inserted in this kind of a charter change. Omar, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Dave?
No, my question is of Joe though. When our first motion was to adopt ranked choice voting, and if I understood Joe correctly, he was wondering if are we going to say shall or may at that thing.
Do we want to do that first?
I think it's to deal with that. I think we have to take a step back and deal with that at that time.
Because even the vote on mayor we just took, is the ballot question going to say the city shall use ranked choice voting, or are we going to say the city may use ranked choice voting? Because I think there's too many variables,
We can do
expense and
that.
stuff.
I think.
I like that, Joe, though.
Yeah.
I agree.
So okay.
Well, we already, and again, these were kind of, our votes were, in my view, just kind of straw votes. Testing the water, see where we were. If we get to the final
We'll vote on final
language, it may be, as Joe says, this simple language here, and we'll decide what's in it. right? Is that Pat? No?
Sure.
We're voting on how we want to assemble this language.
Right, I think you're right, yes. Well,
If you,
we said the mayor. We want to say,
You want to read the whole thing? I know
So
people.
the model statute right here, which we are the one that we're discussing, just for the benefit of the public,
read it.
reads, Section 1, election by ranked choice voting. Notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the mayor and members of the city council shall be elected by ranked choice voting, also known as single transferable vote. The city council shall, by ordinance, establish the ballot format and the rules for casting and counting the votes. So that is the model statute that's there, and what we're really discussing is which parts of that we want to.
well,
whether we
yeah,
want-
we're discussing whether we're going to use this, or this.
Yes, but procedurally, we have two things going on.
Right.
One is, should it be shall or may, and then two, the makeup, mayor or single member, and then we didn't
Right.
get to multi-member yet.
Right.
So Joe, can I ask, if we change it to may, city council may by ordinance, if the people voted that it's okay to have a ranked choice voting, does that mean the city council can decide, say in a mayor's race where there's 4 candidates, not to have ranked choice voting because the word may is there? Or
Well,
if you
wouldn't
say
we-
shall, doesn't it demand that they do it?
Isn't that where the ordinance comes in? It tells you what you're supposed to do. It's not.
No,
It's
but I'm
not
saying,
gonna-
that I don't think so,
Dan-
Sarah, because I
Dan,
think the word shall.
Can I just make one little point? I think the shall leaves an opening if the money's not appropriated, or if for
The may.
some reason
The may leaves that open.
The may leave the may, because
Okay.
it might be that it's not in the budget to buy the software. It might not be that the software is able to handle how, there could be situations not, like, outside of the, out of our control. Like, if you don't have the money to buy the software, you can't do it. So the may kind of gives
Gives
you a
us
little,
flexibility.
you know what I mean?
But the may also means it might not happen.
Well,
Well,
also, go ahead, Sarah.
The idea of writing the ordinance would be to,
Make it happen.
to make it happen, to define the conditions under which it should happen. It must happen by ordinance. So it's not just going to be everybody choosing at every election kind of without process.
I would say we have to define the ad hoc committee as it's defined here, because I don't want it to be just the city
Yeah,
council.
we can add. we can
I
add-
don't think it should be just the city council. That goes to my concern
Yep.
about the politics.
Ad hoc.
But if I'm asking the question, Joe, if the city votes to have ranked choice voting, and the word may is there, does the city council then have the ability to override the cities? If we had a council that didn't like ranked choice voting, then they could say, no, we're not gonna do it.
I think it just leaves you, as Barb mentioned, the opportunity. I mean, obviously people hear money. Of course you can find the money, but let's just say the money wasn't there. It gives you the option to say, we want to, we will next time, but we don't have the money. Or something more practical. Let's say there is something wrong with the software and we can't pull it off. It just gives you
Those
that.
are very
like,
good points. Okay, I'm just asking. I would be agreeable to May.
Maybe.
Shane?
I just have a question. Just to be clear, if we do put the word may in place of shall, are we going to like define who gets to choose whether we're going to use it for that election?
I like the ad hoc committee and not just the city council. That's what I just brought up.
Okay.
An ad hoc committee named by who? The council? And I like what Barbara has as the people in it. I like that a lot.
My concern with the word may is, I understand the practicality is that we're circumventing the will of the voters.
Yelling, not us.
If the voters say shall, or if the voters approve it with the language of may, then the ordinance committee doesn't want it, they can, but then the voters have spoke in favor of it. So, go ahead.
Well, okay, that's where I was, but I think Joe's point is well taken, because there has to be money for it. There has to be money, and there has to be.
Well, that's not necessarily all of our concern.
I agree.
So,
Tom?
in Maine, when they passed this, the legislature went and tried to repeal it. The people's veto, and said, actually, you need to keep this as it stands. How about this? And correct me if this sounds silly, but if we keep the first one as a may up top, may be elected by ranked choice voting, and then in the second sentence say, an ad hoc committee shall by ordinance establish the ballot formulas and rules for casting the votes and the offices that it is applicable to, then that's saying what this definitely does is that a group needs to get together and decide how this is going to work and what to do. And if that group says, you know what, we have a serious budget problem and we need to delay this for 2 years because we can't fund the voter education, then they can do that, but they have come up with that, and if the people then disagree with that ordinance, they have an opportunity to voice their objection.
Does the word may in that respect, the city council may be elected? Who's making the choice whether it'll be ranked choice voting or not?
The ad hoc committee.
Through the ordinance.
Through the ordinance, which ultimately would have to be approved by the city council and the mayor.
Right, it would be a city council
An ad hoc committee like this committee.
Right,
I mean, we'd be established by who's on it in the charter. I would like that. The ad hoc committee, as a second part, section 2 would be what the ad hoc committee consists of, and section 3 would be effective date. But okay.
I'm not sure we can put may in, to be honest with you. I don't know if that would pass legal muster or legislative muster. I mean, I think when you pass something like this, you have to be definitive.
You might be right, but I'm sorry, we're not taking questions right now.
I just have a way that you might be able to resolve this.
I'm sorry, well, okay. If you guys want to open this up to the public, we'll be here a long time. I'm letting it up to you.
I don't mind. But I just have a question for Dave. So Dave, so what if, we'll get the money out of it, but let's say something happened to software and we say shall, what are we going to do?
I understand. I understand that predicament, but I think, you know, it's just going back to the Convention. They said this is our Constitution. Now make it work. You know, I mean, I understand. If, you know, this is approved, and then 12 months, 14 months later, the money is tight, the software's got bugs. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. But I guess we have to do it by paper then.
I would put,
you know,
I would say that Barbara is.
You just gave a heart attack to Barbara.
I understand that,
Well,
but
Barbara is a professional, and I
I
have full faith that she would move heaven and earth to make sure that the election happened. Like
So, I mean, my thing is, I don't, and maybe, look, I'm not a lawyer. In fact, I don't think any of us are, but I do think, I don't see anything wrong with the voters giving the city council or a ad hoc committee the power to write an ordinance allowing this for certain offices. In fact, I believe that is exactly what they did in Amherst. They
have ranked choice voting?
Well, their new charter formed a committee to research this and implement it. But like, it's not, you know, I think that if that committee said we can't do it till 2025 or something for some reason, like they wouldn't be in violation of their charter. They just gave them. It's basically, we are asking the legislature for, and the voters for the authority to write something implementing this.
I don't know where to go. We've already voted that we like the mayor. We voted that we like ranked choice voting. I'm still leery of making it more complicated in the city at the beginning. A lot of cities are number one, mayor only. But I also hear Joe's point that the voters could decide whether or not we do it at all, and then the city council shall or may by ordinance establish it. I think David's point is well taken. The legislature may say, no, you have to have shall, you can't have may. I don't know. Well, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
But also, if we're going to put it out to the voters, and I know we have to, then we don't need to overthink this or perfect it. The voters might say, this is a bad idea, and that's the end of it.
Well, and I like the simplicity of this one, or Barbara's last one, if it was just the mayor. What do we want to do? I'm happy to have a motion to include every election we have to see how the voters vote. I mean, instead of just the mayor, members of the city council and members of the school committee shall be elected by ranked choice voting.
My understanding.
I don't have a problem with putting that to the voters. That's what I'm going to say. I think there's a lot of momentum for that to happen. Why not let the voters decide?
Is that a motion?
Well,
No, I'm just.
Okay.
so my understanding is, and this is, I know this is overly procedural, but like, are we discussing the offices now, or are we discussing this? Are we still on this shall versus may question?
I'm completely lost at what we're discussing.
Okay, so there
I think
seems to
we
be.
should. Do you want to be more? I was trying to do that. I was
Yeah.
trying to be specific to just the mayor.
A, B, or
and then-
C.
What
how
do
about-
I
what
really
do you
think it's.
got?
I think it's A, B, or C.
I'll make a motion.
I really think.
Make a motion.
I'm
I
going to make
really
a
think
motion
it's
that it shall
that
say,
simple.
notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the mayor, the members of the city council, and school board may be elected by ranked choice voting, also known as single transferable vote. The city council, by ordinance
Do you wanna
created
make
by an ad hoc committee,
An ad hoc
shall
committee.
establish the ballot format and rules for casting and counting the votes.
So the word city
Second.
council is struck, the second
No.
sentence.
Mayor, city council, and school committee are in there.
No, I'm talking about ad hoc committee instead of city council.
A city council ad hoc committee.
Okay, good.
An ad hoc committee of the city
Council,
council
there you go.
shall.
Shall by ordinance?
Sure, I'm fine with
Okay.
that.
So we have may up above, shall down below. You second that?
Yes.
Okay.
Discussion.
I think that I like it.
And this opens it up for all the seats. It just is a matter of what the ad hoc committee comes up with
Right.
for which posts.
So if they look at it and they say we can't do multi-winner right now, then
We
they
only want to do
delay
the
it,
mayor,
but-
we only
Yes.
want to do the.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion to include Barbara's language for the ad hoc committee to be
In
included
paragraph
as
two.
section 2, and section 3 shall be the effective date. Where did her language go?
Do we need an effective date? I like what you're saying.
I don't know.
Is there a second?
Hold on.
Well,
Are
he
you
had
talking
voted.
about this paragraph B here?
Paragraph B, in order to implement subsection 1, section 1, the city council president shall appoint an ad hoc committee to draft an ordinance establishing the ballot format and the rules for casting, counting votes. The committee shall be tasked with establishing an implementation budget. The ad hoc committee shall consist of 7 members. City clerk, his or her designee. 1 shall be a member of the Board of Registers of Voters, and 3 shall be registered voters in the city, and 2 shall be members of the city council. So there's only 2 city councilors on this, and there's 7 members.
So does that mean we could really strike the whole second sentence of section 1? Because that's kind of redundant.
No, because we have to say the city council ad hoc committee shall by ordinance. And
Yeah, we
then
need to
this
get the
establishes
ordinance
we have to establish what the ad hoc committee is. The other thing I wonder is it too much on the president? Shall we say the city council, not the president, shall appoint? Just say the city council shall appoint.
I mean, all other appointments like this are done by the president. Right?
I mean,
This committee was appointed by the
You
president.
could, if you wanted another layer, you could send it to appointment subcommittee, put forward by the city council.
We could handle that in our rules, though.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
My problem with all of this, as we think about it, if we word it this way, we're not asking the community, we're asking the community if ranked choice voting is good. Then we're asking another group that's not the community which positions should be elected on. I think you have a better chance of getting it passed if you pick putting it out to the community, putting it out as black and white as possible. Do you want this for the mayor's position? Do you want this for all positions? Do you want this for,
Can we
but what I'm saying is if you do it this way, you're not giving the community an option. You're giving them the option of ranked choice voting, and then someone else is going to decide for you, like a group of 9 people, what positions are elected. I'm sorry.
Well, hold on.
All right, hold on.
We
I have a motion on the floor.
Without a second.
I second.
Go ahead, had a second.
Did you?
Second is the amendment to add
taking a minute.
section 2.
Oh,
The amendment wasn't seconded.
No, you.
okay.
Does anybody second the
I'll
amendment?
second that amendment.
All
Okay.
right, the amendment was on the floor to adopt section 2 and moving the effective date to section 3, section 2 being item B under Barbara's suggested language. Let's have a vote on that, and then we can come back to voting on the whole thing, where, Pat, your comments will have to be taken into consideration. You vote no if you don't. So that's where we are, unfortunately. So I would like a show of hands on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment fails. We have to have 2/3 for anything we vote on the charter.
Okay.
So we're back to this paragraph that we just discussed.
Okay. All in favor of section 1 as read by Counselor McCoy? Raise your hand.
Wait, all
Wait a
right.
minute.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's the motion on the floor. If we vote it down, we have to keep talking. Who's in favor of it?
I won't take it personally.
I don't understand what I'm.
You're voting if you
We
want.
just-
Do we want to read it again for clarity's sake?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so what my motion would say is, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the mayor, members of the city council, and school committee may be elected by ranked choice voting, also known as single transferable vote. An ad hoc committee created by city council shall by ordinance establish the ballot format and the rules for casting and counting the votes.
That's what we're voting on. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have 6 votes. Okay, we have to start over. All in favor of, we've had an adoption of the mayor. I would like to make a formal motion to adopt the language that Barbara's put forward as what we'll put forward to the voters. And we'll just discuss that. We have to do something here. Election by the mayor of ranked choice voting, and we'll use we can use my motion will be the ABC choice that Barbara has, only because I like the ad hoc committee section. That's my motion. Anybody second that, just for the mayor?
I'll second that.
Wait, please.
Sorry.
Can you just clarify the motion a bit?
The motion is to have an election of the mayor
Okay,
only
yeah,
by
yes,
ranked
yeah,
choice voting using Barbara's language, which has 3 sections A, B, C.
Thank you.
Pat's looking up.
And Pat said yes.
And we're working on it. Thanks.
Thank you.
So that's a motion and a second on the floor?
Yes.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the language.
Okay.
I would like to change election of the mayor to elections in single winner races. And where it says running for the office of the mayor, put office of the mayor or precinct councilor.
That's your amendment?
That would be my amendment. I'm just
Need a second?
scanning.
Ask him to say that again.
I'll second.
I got it.
You want it, you got that?
Are you saying the offices or single winner races?
Yeah, the mayor and precinct councilors. Yeah, so it's just say single winner, yeah.
Okay, now we're voting on the amendment, not just the mayor, but the mayor and single winner races.
Is there a second?
I did.
I'm sorry.
Further discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not in favor of that, I'm sorry. So that doesn't pass. The amendment doesn't pass. The original is the election of the mayor as stated by Barbara, sections A, B, and C. All in favor of just the mayor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That passes unanimously. I believe we're done. We have decided, we've gone through everything, okay? And we've decided that only the mayor will be ranked choice voting and put forward to our current mayor and to the attorney for approval, using the language as, and I believe section 7.5 is what we decided. Am I correct on that? Everybody's clear? We voted on section 7.5, election of the mayor by ranked choice voting, using Barbara's language.
Can you just clarify the shall and the may?
On the first, on A.
On A.
It says shall.
Okay,
I didn't want to change that.
okay.
So
It
the
just
A,
how
B,
it's
C as written.
Yep.
It means that the election has to be conducted by ranked choice voting, and if this passes the voters, it has to be funded. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
We have 2 years.
Dependent upon voting, on funding.
Where does it say that?
See?
See? Oh, okay, good, I'm glad. Sorry. I'm glad that's there. We voted yes to this. Everybody okay? Motion, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we have everybody here? Okay,
So why
reconvene.
don't you say, why don't we change it?
All right, do we want to continue into Article 7? How many people looked at the rest of Article 7?
Did I look at it? I don't have it.
Nobody did!
I really expected that we'd spend our whole time on this, so I'm not super prepared to discuss. I mean, I know what's in it, but I don't have even the language in front
I think
of me.
citizen referendum procedures is important to look at carefully.
Let me just go through it real quickly. We already did 7.3. Article 7.6 uses the word preliminary, and I thought we should get rid of that in 7.6.
Okay, that's pretty easy.
All right.
I'm just saying that because we don't use number of,
Yeah, could I just make a broad motion to remove the word preliminary wherever it exists in the document because we don't have them?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Somebody remind me because I have to write that.
I got it.
Okay.
Who seconded Tom's?
I did, I think.
So
I feel bad that I
7.5,
had to do meeting
I am
minutes
going to
last week.
place Barbara's language into 7.5, just so we know where we're at. Okay?
Replace it?
The 7.5 that I have was Tom's language, but we're gonna, what do we have now? I don't have the original charter in front of me. What do we have in 7.5 now?
Tie votes.
I vote for candidates
So that'd be 7.6 and everything would just go up.
We're just gonna bump everything one thing.
down. Yeah.
But I asked this,
What do you think?
do we, where did this is Tom's, this isn't even
Remember
mine,
that.
so I don't know what I'm looking at. I apologize, I'm a little
Very
behind
often.
there.
It has though.
Dan, I'm not
Remember-
prepared to
remember
discuss
They had that and they had another
the rest of
election
this in any
Southampton,
great
too.
detail.
Motion to adjourn. go ahead.
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Thank you.